In this video, we're going to talk about the different options for LLC formation, whether you go through your state website, an online legal tool, or sometimes called LLC services, or a business attorney. But before we get to all that, I want to make mention that there are affiliate links in the description of this video, which I do make a commission for. But when you use our links, we make a $20 donation to charity on your behalf. I'm going to be talking about that later in this video. But what I want to talk about first are the fees associated with setting up your LLC, because some of these do not matter regardless which route you go, and others do. So what we have is there's the state filing fee, which is required. There are renewal fees, which are required. And then there are online tool fees, which are optional. What you can see here is there is an LLC cost calculator that is highlighting 5 of the top LLC service brands out there online. Now, the reason we did this is you can, in the second block here, let's say, in this particular case, we have Alabama, but why don't we do something else and we'll go for Florida. Now, what you'll see is the numbers just changed. And under the second block here, you'll see there's a state filing fee. Now, the state filing fee in Florida is $125, and their annual fee is $138.65. Let's talk about what the annual fee and biannual fee mean, because I think what you'll see here, if I recall correctly, like if you go to Alaska, you'll see that they have a $250 filing fee and then a $100 biannual fee. Now, what that means is every 2 years in Alaska, you have to pay $100 to the state and renew your LLC. Typically, how this works is it's the first quarter of the calendar year is when that is due. And if you don't renew your LLC, if you've watched my previous video on how to create an LLC, you know that it'll create a crack in your LLC if you don't renew it. Now, that's a big issue because you can put a lot of liability on yourself for that. But if it's an annual fee, that means you have to pay that every single year. Most states, it's an annual fee. Like if I just pick a random one like Indiana, theirs is actually biannual. Why don't we just do one more? Maryland. You can see that you have to pay $300 every year in Maryland. There's no way of getting around these fees. You're going to pay the $100 fee for getting your LLC formed when you file your articles of organization, and you're also going to pay this fee. Now, where all these numbers come from, the 5-year total cost, if you were to use one of these services, is it's adding up everything that the LLC service does for you as well. The annual report filing. Now, in this particular case, why don't we get off of Maryland, because it's really hard to look at that $300 fee. We'll go back to Florida. Florida charges $138.35 for that annual fee. But if you'd like, Bizee, formerly called InkFile, they'll do this for you for $99. LegalZoom will do it for you for $149. It's a nice service because if you want to make sure that it's done correctly, they can just do this for you every single year for you, and it puts everything in a clean, neat dashboard for you. But you can also just do it on yourself if you choose to do so. Now, registered agent, we talked about this in a past video. Their third party handles important documentation and communication for your business. What you'll find is that it varies quite a bit in what these services will charge for a registered agent. LegalZoom right now, and these prices, they're always updated because they change quite a bit. But right now they're charging $249 a year for that service, where Bizee is $0 for the first year for that service. Also, there's subscription fees. These are all $0 because this is all based on the basic package for these services. If you do end up going into higher tier packages, sometimes there's subscription fees that come in. Now, the reason that you see such a difference in the 5-year total cost of owning an LLC when you're comparing LegalZoom versus Bizee is all those extra fees that we're talking about down here. Like LegalZoom is very expensive for the registered agent. They're also more expensive for the annual report filing. In a previous video, we talked about your EIN. You can do this for free with your by getting the IRS website, and then there's a link on this Notion doc. But if you want to have these services do it for you, you can see that they charge different amounts for filing for you. So I'd highly suggest checking out this calculator so you can get an idea of what it costs to own that LLC in your state, not just today, but also 5 years out. Now, next thing I want to talk about is right here, there's a bonus charitable opportunity I mentioned at the beginning of this video. Basically, if you use one of our affiliate links for one of these services below in the description, we'll donate $20 to a charity called Crisis Services of West New York. What they do is when people are in a moment of crisis, whether that be domestic violence or maybe it's a suicidal situation, they can call this hotline and a person will talk to them and help them get the resources that they need so they don't make a drastic decision. Now, I know that's a little bit hard to talk about in a video like this. Just know that the prices that you can get through my affiliate links are the best prices I can get for you, but then you also get a $20 donation made on your behalf. Now, other things we want to talk about. Star ratings. This is really important. The team and I came up with these, and the way that we came up with these is let's look at cost first. Cheapest route that you can go is using the state website. And the reason it gets 5 stars is there's not a lot of upsells. There's just the expedited processing fee, When you go through online LLC services that we just mentioned, like Bizee, LegalZoom, Zen Business, Taylor Brands, the cost, I gave it 4 stars because they do have a basic package fee that's $0 plus state fee, except for Northwest, which is charging $39. I will mention Northwest, you'll see a lot of different prices out there. Like if you go directly through their website, it's going to be $100. They offer affiliates a discounted rate, but it's still more expensive than all the other services, so I don't typically recommend that. If you go through a business attorney, I put the cost at 1. It's going to cost you at least $1,000, but there's times that it may make sense to go through that business attorney. Now, the state website, ease of use, maintenance, and services, I put very low here because they just don't provide them, right? It's hard to use the state websites typically, and then they don't provide you all those ancillary or extra services that are available to you when you're using online LLC services. Now, the ease of use, maintenance are great for that online tools. Services, I put at 4 stars, and I put at 5 stars for the business attorney. And that's because the business attorney can dial in exactly what you need for your specific situation if it's more complex, right? And again, we're going to talk about some things that you want to consider here when we get into questions worth asking. But I just wanted to cover that really quickly. And now, why don't we talk about why the state websites can become a pain? Because you might be wondering, like, well, if I don't want all those extra services, like, why would I ever use any of these other things besides just going directly through the state? Like, cut out the middleman, right? Well, one of the things that's difficult is, let's say, hypothetically, that you're setting up a domestic LLC in Texas. Now, what the domestic LLC means is that is like your home base, like where your LLC is formed and originated, you have a business in Texas. Now, it's a coffee shop, right? But you decide that you're going to start opening up coffee shops in different states because things are going so well. And what ends up happening is you now have employees and offices in those other states, and you now have to register a foreign LLC in those other states. So where this gets a little bit complicated is, let's say you're in like 4 different states now, and you have to every single year log in to 4 different state websites and renew your LLC in Texas, but then also make sure you're updating and being aware of foreign LLC requirements in these other states as well. And it becomes very complicated. It becomes a lot to manage. When you use an online LLC service, you can do all of that in one single dashboard, which makes it really clean and easy to manage your LLCs. And you might end up spending a few extra dollars, but as your business grows, the dollars that you're spending on things become less important as you make more income. And what becomes more important is your sanity, organization, and time. So that is why a lot of times I don't recommend going through the state websites. But there are times where you may want to go through an attorney, and let's talk about some of the questions that are on the sheet right here. First 2, do you want it fast and do you want it low cost? An attorney, I also put CPA on here. The reason I mentioned a CPA is maybe you're not ready to talk to an attorney yet, but a local CPA could be a good option if you can find one, and we're going to talk about that in the next video. But if you want it fast and low cost, that's not the route to go. Do you want one clean dashboard to manage your LLCs, and do you plan to have more LLCs in the future? We just talked about that in the last concept there with foreign LLCs. I would recommend going with these online LLC services. Do you have low attention to detail? Here I mentioned online services or an attorney. The reason for that, the state websites don't do a great job of informing you through the process of everything you need to know. They'll just say, who's your registered agent? And then it's like no other information. So if you're going through the state website, you have to have good attention to detail, read through every single line item, really kind of educate yourself to go through that process. Now, do you have offices out of state, and do you have employees in other states? We just talked about that with the foreign LLC. If it's day 1 of your business and you already have employees in and out of state and offices in and out of state, I would recommend going with a business attorney because you may want to be able to dial things in based on that complexity that you have that most people starting your LLCs do not have. Now, is the LLC for rental properties? So let's take a moment to talk about this because this may not apply to you today, but if you're owning a business, you may end up buying property with that business down the line. It can help in terms of taxes, right? Because it's better to own the property instead of like renting to somebody else kind of thing. Now, let's say that you have Beth and Jim, and they're both wondering about setting up LLCs for their rental properties. They both have 4 rental properties, but Beth's rental properties, each one of them is worth $1 million. So she has $4 million worth of assets. Now, Jim has 4 rental properties, but they're each worth $50,000. So he has a total of $200,000 worth of assets. There's something called asset protection strategy, and that's something an attorney can work through with you. An attorney might say, hey, Jim over here, why don't you get one LLC? It's $200,000. We're going to put all 4 properties into that LLC. But for Beth, we may recommend that you get 4 LLCs set up because each one is worth $500,000. You can see how this is very different. Now, some attorneys and even CPAs will weigh in on this, is that you can get something called this series LLC where you're thinking about getting like 30 rental properties. That can be a lot of LLCs to manage. Well, you could have one LLC, a series LLC with sub LLCs underneath it. Again, this is why in certain situations you may want to talk to an attorney. Right here, are you currently making $40,000 a year in net profit? The number varies. Some people say 40,000, others say 50,000. The reason you may want to talk to an attorney if you're setting up your LLC and you're already making that income is you can file something where your LLC has an S Corp tax designation. We're going to talk about this in the future video, the next video in the series, but basically this is really good to know today, even if you're just getting started, because you don't want to just keep that LLC. Eventually, when your business starts making more money, you can save on taxes with that S Corp designation. And again, we'll talk about that in the next video. Last one here, are you starting your LLC with a partner? That really comes down to the operating agreement, making sure everything is spelled out. Having a really solid operating agreement in place with a partner is really recommended. You can go through an online legal tool and use one of these boilerplate operating agreement templates. But sometimes if you have a complex situation with a partner, you may want to talk to a business attorney as well. Now, what we're going to talk about in the next video is a 7-point checklist for maintaining your LLC, a way to streamline that. And I'll tease this a little bit. My recommendation there is typically using the service Bizee. We're going to show you their mid-tier package and how you can streamline a lot of the things you have to do when setting up your LLC. So if you are looking for a recommendation in this video based on the links in the description below, Bizee typically is the way to go unless you're looking for a business attorney. LegalZoom may provide that for you because they have a network of attorneys as well, but we'll have future reviews on those. But we're also going to get into the bonuses here, and specifically I want to talk about future tax savings and free CPA advice in the next video. So I'll catch you in this next video.